Most people your age are missing a key advantage, and it's right there in front of them. Communication. Being able to express yourself clearly and confidently opens doors that others won't even see. Employers will notice you, better opportunities will come your way, and even your personal relationships will improve. The best part, you don't have to be a communications expert to stand out. In a world where so few people know how to engage well, just being decent puts you miles ahead. So if you want to stop blending in and start getting ahead, stick around. This could change everything. Your ability to communicate in life is the biggest determinant to your success. Now, before we proceed, it's important that you understand that everyone is capable of becoming a great communicator. No one comes out of the womb communicating effectively. It's a learned skill. So regardless of where your communication skills are now, you can become great. You are capable. Now, having understood that and understanding that you have the ability, becoming a great communicator, we can now turn to step one. Becoming a great communicator starts with thinking from the other person's point of view. When we are first born and begin to develop, we have an egocentric viewpoint. Children believe that the world is centered around them and that everyone else sees, thinks, and feels the same way that they do. They feel that they are the center of the universe. This isn't a malicious viewpoint. Until you reach a certain age, you are yet to understand that other people have perspectives and views that are different from your own. Egocentric thinking is a fundamental development phase and essential survival mechanism for babies. Babies are born egocentric and cry to have their needs met. As we grow older, we start to realize that other people have perspectives too and their own feelings as well, and we can grow capable of seeing someone else's viewpoint. And over development, this trait becomes stronger and stronger. But at a certain point, it falls on our shoulders to keep developing this skill. It's one of the most important things when it comes to effective communication. Now, that sounds great, but what exactly does that mean? When we engage and communicate with people, there are two different ways that we could act. We could first be considerate of our own needs. What do we want to say? What do we want to get out of this interaction? This can feel good in the moment, but to other people can sound very egotistical. I'm sure you can think of some examples from people in your life that only talk or care about themselves. How interested are you ever to talk with them? The other way would be thinking about what the other person wants to hear and feel. What does the other person want to hear? What does the other person want to feel? Usually our conversations exist in a balance between the two. There will be some things that we really want to say, and we will give the other party some time to talk. But the closer we can get to approaching conversations as opportunities for others instead of something for us to get out of it, the better they will be. By changing our viewpoint to view it as an opportunity to make the other person hear, feel, and say what they want, an opportunity to connect and fulfill and leave a great impression, the better conversators we can be. And when there is something that we want to get out of a conversation, it's important we think about this from the perspective of the other person's needs and wants. You can think about the people in your life who you are always excited to have a conversation with. What do they say? How do they make you feel? If I were to answer, I'd say they usually have a very positive attitude. They ask me things about myself. Usually I feel like I can relate to them and they make me feel understood. Sometimes these people might do cool things that I'm excited to ask them about, but not always. How many people do you know that give off negative energy that you are genuinely excited to talk to? Probably not that many, if any at all. What about people that only talk about themselves? Probably not that many either. What about people you feel like you don't share any common experience with and don't relate to? Probably not that many again. The first step is making this change in mindset, changing your perspective and the purpose of a conversation to see things through the other person's point of view. Changing your perspective in conversations should not feel like a loss, like you're losing the ability to talk about the things you want to because you're shifting to a more listening and non-ego driven perspective. In fact, when you go to embrace this new form of conversating, a lot of people will actually enjoy this more than they did before. Not only because you're leaving a great impression and connecting and communicating with people more effectively, but by focusing on others and what the other person has to say, you can learn a whole lot more. It's a common trope that sometimes these smartest people are the most quiet. When you stop absorbing time with your talking, you can find you can learn a lot more by listening and questioning others and absorbing their information. In Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I'd say is one of the quintessential books on effective communications, you'll find that much of the book is dedicated to the principle of being a good listener. Part 2 of chapter 4 in the book is titled An Easy Way to Become a Good Conversationalist. This chapter discusses how people are more interested in talking about themselves. So instead of dominating the conversation, you should ask questions that encourage others to talk about their experiences, interests, and opinions. Carnegie explains that showing genuine interest by asking thoughtful questions makes others feel valued, helping you build rapport and influence. This technique also shifts the focus away from you and creates a positive impression, as most people enjoy talking about themselves more than listening to others. Keep in mind that although most people feel this way, it's just because most people never break out of that shell enough to start asking questions and realizing the benefits that come with listening and building rapport in this way. So the first step is changing your perspective on the purpose of communicating and starting to view conversations through the lens and perspective of the other participating parties. Step Step 2 is energy. You are what you put off. In the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, there's a quote in Law 10, which is infection. Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky, that addresses how associating with sad or negative people can bring you down. The quote goes, "You can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases." The law advises staying away from chronically unhappy or unlucky individuals, as their negativity can affect your own mood, thinking, and even success. Greene argues that emotions, particularly sadness and misfortune, can spread, and it's much better to surround yourself with positive, successful people to avoid being dragged down. It's okay to be sad from time to time, but when we think about our general energy that we're putting off, other people will radiate what we put off. If you give off good energy, people will be attracted to that. When I phrased the question earlier, how many people do you know that are sad that you enjoy talking to? The people that I'm most excited to talk to put off great energy. They're happy and they make me feel happy too just by talking with them. Sometimes it's little compliments, but even beyond compliments, it's just energy overall. With energy, first, just maintain a happy vibe. It's so great if it's genuine. If you are genuinely happy, people can feel that. They can radiate off of that. Now, learning to become happy is a whole other can of worms, but if you are able to give off happy vibes, then people will be drawn to that. The second step in energy is setting the tone and being an actor rather than a reactor. Are you someone that just reacts to the energy that other people put off, or do you bring the same energy regardless? Most people are reactors. The moods of others bring them up and down, and they simply react to what the other person brings to the conversation. Instead, you can be the one that takes action and is the actor, setting the tone and bringing the high energy and positive energy regardless of what is there before. Your face says it all. If you're happy to see someone, then they will be happy to see you. In the 92 Ways to Talk to Anyone by Lowndes, one of the tips is called the flooding smile, and it advises not to smile immediately when you meet someone. Instead, first make eye contact, pause briefly, and then let a smile slowly appear. This technique makes your smile seem more personal and sincere, as if it's a reaction specifically to the person right in front of you, rather than something you give to everyone automatically. By sincerely reacting to others around you in a positive way, even if it's not planned out like a flooding smile, you can set the tone for your communications and interactions. Now, as important as it is to be an actor versus a reactor, it's also important to balance that with reading the energy. Even if you bring that same positive energy, you can make slight adjustments depending on what the other person is feeding off. Being able to adjust and match energy is such a crucial skill. So come in with your energy and adjust depending on the vibe. People like, and if you're able to read emotions and mirror them, then you are setting yourself up for an effective communication. A third of the battle of communication is before you've spoken a single word. It's the vibe that you've set. Now, the third and final step I'm going over with communication today is relating. As I've just established, one of the primary human emotions shared across cultures is we like people that can relate to us. We like things that are similar and we share an interest with. One of the most important things that you can do when engaging in a conversation is finding common ground. There's big things that hold everyone together that you can find are the basis of lots of the conversations and small talk that we see today, from sports to weather to politics. This principle is how fans of a band can bond together over their love of that, how people are brought together as supporters of the same politician and also driven apart when they're not. It's why general small talk is about things we are all experiencing, like the weather. Common ground is best formed, however, when it's about things that seem unique to one another and not just something anyone can share. For instance, for college, I went to USC, and when I meet someone in Los Angeles that went to USC, it's cool, but lots of people in LA have gone to USC. It's not that crazy of an experience. However, if I was in Europe, or even just on the other side of the country, and I see someone who's gone to USC, then it's a big bonding experience. I've just seen someone who's gone to the same school where that's a lot more of a rarity. It's something cool, something to note, not just something that anyone can relate to. I've also lived in 4 or 5 different places, and if I meet someone who is from or near one of the places I've lived, I'll always bring that up, not bringing up a place that has nothing to do with where they're from, because instead we can relate over a shared experience of living in a similar place, even if it's not where I live now or if it was a short period of time. Finding opportunities like this to relate with someone and adapting my answers to figure out what it is that I can connect to most in this person is a powerful thing. Politicians do this all the time and is given the negative connotation a lot of code switching. But in conversations, when you can adapt to the other person or the groups that you're talking to, this can be effective as long as you're not appropriating or doing something crazy that's out of character for you. It's just finding the parts of your character that relate most to the other person and bringing them to the forefront of the conversation. A big factor in how good your questions are is how well you're able to relate with someone. How deeply can you ask a question that's still related to them? People who engage in small talk, sticking to topics like the weather, are doing this because they can't think of anything better to talk to the other person about. If you can find better ways to relate, you can ask deeper, more probing, and better questions that people care more about than the nice weather we've been having lately. A lot of people turn to sports as a general interest, and liking the same team can be a big thing to relate on. Even watching the same sport can be a bond. You guys watch the same sport and care about the game just as much, even if you're rooting for different teams. The deeper you can dive and the better you'll get at finding ways to relate with others, the better your questions will be, the better your conversations will be, and the more rapport you'll build up with the other person. Shared experiences that you guys have together are powerful, whether you experience them together and can call back to that rapport that was built, or if you experience them separately and can call back to those feelings that you both shared. Using first names in conversation is also great as it feels personal and establishes rapport. But to summarize, step 1 is to view conversations from the other's perspective. Step 2 is bring good energy into conversations by being an actor, not a reactor, and still having the ability to adapt your energy to match the other parties. And 3, finding ways to relate and build rapport with the other person. You'll find books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a great book, but will point you in many different directions with little tips and tricks. When it comes down to it, these are the 3 things to work towards in order to have more effective conversations and communications. The thing about effective communication is you can read and watch videos all you want, but real change comes with experience and action. Someone who has been put in positions since a young age to engage in more conversations and communication will probably be a more effective communicator now versus someone who hasn't. But as I said at the beginning, anyone is capable of becoming a great communicator. It's a learned skill. So regardless of where your communication skills are now, you can become great. It's about getting out and getting real practice, engaging in the things we started at today. An easy way to start is paying compliments to the world around as you pass people on the street and go about your day, whether it's riding the subway, waiting at a crosswalk, or walking down the hallways at work. There are invisible barriers we set up with strangers where communications can't happen. Breaking through these barriers by paying compliments is one of the easiest ways to get experience communicating. Everyone loves a compliment, and sometimes all it takes is a little experience to see that. Next time you find yourself in a social interaction, try out the steps we talked about today. Don't worry about coming across as sounding different than you did before. Put these things in action and give it a try. Think about the communication from the other person's point of view. Think about the energy you're putting off. And think about how are the ways that you can relate or can start to relate with other person. Subscribe for more, comment down below, and I'll help hold you guys accountable, and I'll see you next time.